What makes an action film? It's not just guns and explosions or rippling muscles and blood. It is about tension, excitement, and story. In a way, action as a genre is a bit of a misnomer. The writer of Commando and Die Hard even laments the action film label, as it is so general. But regardless, it has stuck. Aliens is considered not only one of the best action films, but one of the greatest action screenplays and one of the best sequels of all time. I'm not here to dispute any of that, but I want to explore why it is seen as such. After all, when it comes to pacing, iconography, and yes, genre, Aliens is actually pretty removed from what we often expect of action cinema. It is a sequel to a slow-paced horror classic. The bad guys are insect-like monsters. It's set in space. There isn't any action until about an hour into the film.
Let's rock!
The tagline states that this time it's war, but in terms of actual on-screen exhilaration, there's not that much of its running time dedicated to chaos. The first was a slow burn, and so is Aliens, in its own way. The thing to remember about Aliens is that it is still a horror film. Cameron understood that though he wanted to escalate his sequel into something more bombastic, he should still follow the structure of the original somewhat, as opposed to making something akin structurally to other action films of the time. Now, one could argue that Aliens' pace is somewhat glacial. I've even read in articles some say, who doesn't want to fast forward everything up to the first action scene? And though I understand that feeling, it is missing the point of what Cameron was doing and not something I've ever felt the urge to do myself. After all, you could argue the technical second-to-second action in Aliens is good, but nothing groundbreaking. At times, it is a little stilted, but it isn't all about that. Action requires strong character work for it to really have an impact. If you're putting characters in horrible, death-defying situations, you'll care more for whether they survive or not if you care for them. Spending time with them, seeing how they interact, gaining an understanding of what is at stake, all subconsciously develops later action scenes to become more effective.
Are you alright?
And in a film like Aliens, that background emotional work is so strong that action like this is considered some of the best of all time. But before I get into that, there is a few things I want to quickly discuss. Alien is as perfect a film as you can get in my eyes, the way its titular organism is. Cameron took that creature and turned it into cannon fodder. He undoubtedly lessened the strength of this creature as a singular beast. The sequel's characters are more simple stereotypes than previously too. Even the alien itself in the first was more dimensional than the Queen in the second. There is that moment of hesitation as she waits for Ripley to burn her eggs that shows something of a character, but other than that, she is a tank. In the original, the way the creature waited, stalking, choosing its prey, even the sexual connotations of its birth and the way it could be seen as abusing Lambert gave it something of a horrifying character. Cameron is just a little more heavy-handed with things.
I promised her that I would be home for her birthday.
Which isn't necessarily a criticism, more an observation to be aware of when seeing the film.
Isn't that how babies come?
For me too, the theatrical cut is the best version of the film. In the director's cut, the early sequence at Hadley's Hope takes away from the mystery of the film, and the turret sequence adds nothing but length. It's definitely the least exciting action sequence in my opinion, and it bloats an already bloated running time to over 2.5 hours. The director's cut isn't in any way bad. It's just not my preferred way of seeing the film. And to anyone who comments saying that you can't compare Alien and Aliens, you can. It is a sequel that opens pretty much directly after the first one. It shares the same lead character and villain in a way, and structurally it's actually pretty similar. Hell, Alien's ending is just a much larger scale retread of the first. For me, Alien is a masterpiece. Aliens simply is a slightly lesser work, but still an action sequel masterpiece. Here is why it works so well. Back to what I said before, yes, the Marines are stereotypes, but they are given just enough humanity at the right times to give enough for us to care.
Don't touch that. Dangerous, honey.
The stereotype debate is not helped by Vasquez, a Latino character, being played by a white woman made to look darker skinned, but I digress. I guess that is somewhat cancelled out by the time the film was made, and Vasquez having a lot to her as a strong woman, even if in 2019 it is questionable. Other than perhaps that step in the wrong direction, it is Cameron's casting that helps to avoid the Marines feeling one-dimensional.
What is it, Hicks?
Hudson, sir. He's Hicks.
Michael Bihn's quiet Hicks, careful development to hero mirrors Ripley's own gradual promotion to lead character in the first. And though Hudson is little more than a panicked male version of Lambert from the first film, Bill Paxton totally sells it.
There's some real pretty shit now, man! You finished?
It is great too when even Ferro, an undeniably small role, goes for her gun instead of just screaming when she is attacked. You believe that Cameron cares about how all of his female characters are portrayed.
1. Mark.
I do perhaps lament that to make Ripley a strong female character, it immediately uses motherhood to portray that, which feels a bit obvious, but I cannot deny that it works. As John York wrote in his fantastic book on story, Into the Woods, her nominal quest is to return to the planet to destroy aliens, but her underlying one is to prove herself a mother once again. It is unusual to see a protagonist of a Hollywood blockbuster undergo such an internal transformation. The aliens too might quickly become cannon fodder versus that lone terrifying beast of the first film, but man, are they scary when they come out of the goddamn walls. Starting of course with this set piece, Aliens becomes the intense thrill ride from then on that we hear so much about. But it works because of Cameron's ability over that first hour to carefully build up to the fireworks. All of that careful plotting and character work earlier in the film, establishing that the Marines may not have great communication with the rest of the team, losing their use of weapons due to the potentially volatile environment which neuters them, the jarringly brutal death of the terraformer that shakes things up. The tension is wound as tightly as possible so that you're already on the edge of your seat before it goes into overdrive. The tension still continues to build though, even after the action has begun. Frost is the first to die and takes with him most of the much needed ammunition. That causes an explosion. More Marines die. It is pure chaos. Half of it is seen through grainy onboard cameras, which somehow it's still more easy to follow than most shaky action scenes these days. Later on, developments such as losing the dropship and more members of the crew further isolates the team and makes survival even less possible, not helped by the reveal of Burke's nefarious plans. The attack on operations is great in terms of build too. The team lose power, everybody is left shaken by the facehugger attack. Hudson can barely make sense of the motion detector signals.
They're in here.
We know something is going to happen, but we don't know how. The motion detector in general is a great micro race against time device. Its objective is to inform us of impending doom, but Cameron constantly plays with our expectations of how it works to make us feel unsafe.
6.
Can't be, that's inside the room.
We feel guided toward the chaos, but still with a sense yet that anything can happen. It's like being on a roller coaster and you can't see the next turns ahead, even if you know you're on rails. The blend in the film of carefully constructed sequences of pure tension, punctuated by chaotic but still controlled set pieces over and over, is what keeps you hooked throughout. You could argue that the scenes toward the end involving the lift take too long, but that is kind of the point again. It adds to the race against time. Knowing she is on a time limit and feeling just how long the lift takes to descend, you can then work out just how much she'll be cutting it thin, due to inevitably having to ride back up. It reminds me of how Brian De Palma used this staircase in Scarface. Seeing how long it takes to go up at the start means we feel more pressure when something goes wrong and they need backup. It is going to take a dangerous amount of time. In general, Cameron really takes his time leading to the Queen when perhaps other filmmakers would speed through it to the conclusion, as most action films do. But this is still horror action. We are building to something else, something bigger. Ripley is descending into the Lovecraftian bowels to meet an unimaginable terror. It should take time. She isn't facing humans or standard xenomorphs. This is something else. And the Alien Queen reveal is an all-timer. not only due to her appearance and Ripley's reaction, but that gradual, painful build. And of course, setting mother against mother just makes it more exciting and thematically relevant. Even Cameron's dialogue, always somewhat expository, builds us subtly to understanding the character relationships. He may be heavy-handed with some themes, but simply through looks and short functional lines, even the use of first names,
It's Dwayne.
Ellen.
we really get a sense of, for example, the developing respect between Hicks and Ripley.
Hicks, I'm not gonna end up like those others. You'll take care of it, won't you?
If it comes to that, I'll do us both.
And I've gone without mentioning this one final thing that wraps it all up into something truly masterful: the score. It elevates the film to something operatic. It is as grand as it is intense, and supports the action and the menace beautifully. To say they don't do action themes like this anymore is an understatement. Horner apparently wasn't overly happy with his work on the film due to the tight schedule, so one can only imagine what he'd have delivered had he more time. Do I think Aliens is a perfect film? No. Once again, I do have to say that yes, Alien is a better film. But as an example of that most vague of genres, the action film, this is about as perfect a framework as you can get. Yes, it isn't Alien, but it is its own evolved beast. It is quite possibly the ultimate action film. Thanks for watching, and a reminder that this video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creators with more than 25,000 classes in design, business, and more. If you want to learn anything online, this is the place to go. I've been using it and personally have had a fantastic experience. Premium membership gives you unlimited access so you can join the classes and communities that are just right for you. And there is stuff in there I bet you'll find interesting that you won't even have thought of. For me, just seeing what other creators are doing around motion graphics, for instance, has been incredibly valuable. Skillshare is also very affordable. An annual subscription is less than $10 a month. Join more than 7 million creators learning with Skillshare. And the first 500 of my subscribers to use the link in the description will get a 2-month free trial.